Don't just watch this. Feel this for a second. If you are truly in control of your life, then answer this honestly. Why do the same thoughts return? Even when you don't want them? Why do the same emotions take over, even when you promised yourself they wouldn't? Why do you keep repeating things you already know are hurting you? Pause. Look closely. You don't choose your next thought. It appears. You don't decide your first reaction. It happens. And by the time you become aware, you're already inside it. So ask yourself, who's really in control? Because there is something inside you, silent, automatic, unseen, that has been running your life this entire time. It shapes what you feel, it controls how you react, it repeats your past without asking you. And the most dangerous part is, you trust it, you believe it, you think it is you, but it's not. And the moment you see this clearly, not just hear it, but truly see it, something breaks. The illusion, the control, the pattern. This is not just another video. This is a moment where you either keep living unconsciously or finally see what has been controlling you all along. The voice in your head is not who you are. There is a constant voice speaking inside your mind, quietly but continuously, narrating everything you do, judging every action you take, replaying moments from your past and trying to predict what will happen next. It is always there, from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep. It comments on what you should do, what you shouldn't have done, what might go wrong, and what others might be thinking about you. It feels so familiar and so close that you naturally assume it is you. You don't question it because it sounds like your own voice, and because of that, you trust it without even realizing it. But if you slow down and really observe this voice, you will begin to notice something important. It is not original. It is not fresh. It is repeating things it has learned over time. Every opinion it gives, every fear it creates, every judgment it makes has come from somewhere. It comes from your past experiences, from the way you were raised, from things people said to you, from moments that hurt you, from situations that made you feel small or afraid. It is built piece by piece over the years, shaped by everything you have gone through, even the things you don't clearly remember anymore. This voice does not speak truth. It speaks habit. It speaks memory. It speaks conditioning. It repeats what it already knows, not what is actually happening in the present moment. That is why it often brings back the same fears again and again, even when nothing is wrong. It reminds you of past pain and makes you feel like it is happening now. It tells you stories about yourself that you accepted long ago, and it keeps repeating them until they feel like facts. Over time, you stop questioning it completely. You start believing that this voice is your identity, that it defines who you are, what you are capable of, and what your life will become. And this is where the real problem begins. Because the moment you believe every thought without questioning it, you lose your ability to see clearly. You stop observing what is actually happening, and instead, you start reacting based on what this voice is telling you. You follow it without realizing it. It tells you to worry, and you worry. It tells you to doubt yourself, and you step back. It tells you to fear, and you hesitate. You think you are making decisions, but in reality, you are following a script that was written long ago. If you pay close attention, you will notice that this voice is not always kind to you. It criticizes you more than it supports you. It reminds you of your mistakes more than your growth. It makes you feel like you are not enough, like you are behind, like something is missing. And yet, even when it hurts you, you still believe it. You still listen. You still let it guide your actions. This is how powerful it is, not because it is true, but because it is familiar. The truth is, you are not this voice. You are the one who can hear it. The voice is something that appears inside your mind, but you are the awareness that notices it. There is a difference, and that difference changes everything. Because once you begin to see that this voice is not who you are, you create a small distance between you and it. And in that distance, something new becomes possible. You begin to question it. You begin to notice when it is repeating old fears. You begin to see when it is exaggerating or creating problems that do not exist. You stop reacting immediately, and instead, you pause. And in that pause, you start to take your power back. Not by fighting the voice, not by trying to silence it, but by simply seeing it for what it is. It is just a voice, a learned voice, a repeated voice, a conditioned voice. And you are something much deeper than that. The more you understand this, the less control it has over you. The more you observe it, the weaker it becomes. And slowly, without force, without struggle, you begin to realize that you don't have to follow every thought that appears in your mind. You can listen without obeying. You can notice without reacting. You can hear the voice and still choose your own direction. And that is where real freedom begins. You're not choosing. You're being driven. You move through your day believing you are making choices, believing every action is something you decided in that moment. You think you chose to react, chose to speak, chose to feel the way you felt. It gives you a sense of control, a sense that your life is in your hands. But if you slow down and truly look at how your reactions happen, something very different begins to appear. And most of the time, things don't feel like a calm, clear decision. They feel fast, automatic, almost instant. Before you even realize it, the reaction has already taken over. A small comment from someone and suddenly you feel irritated. A simple situation and your mind starts overthinking. A memory appears and your mood shifts without warning. Did you choose that? Or did it just happen? If you are honest with yourself, you will see that it happens first, and only after that, your mind steps in to explain it. It creates reasons, justifications, stories that make it feel like you were in control all along. But the truth is, you were already being moved before you even became aware of it. There is a force inside you that reacts faster than your conscious mind. It is built from habits, from past experiences, from emotional patterns that have been repeated so many times, they now run on their own. It does not stop and ask, what is the best response right now? It simply reacts based on what it already knows. If something feels similar to a past experience, it brings up the same emotion. If something reminds you of fear, it triggers the same fear. If something touches an old wound, it reacts as if that wound is still open. And because this process happens so quickly, it feels like you are the one choosing it. But in reality, you are stepping into something that has already started. It is like arriving in the middle of a story and believing you wrote it from the beginning. Your mind is incredibly skilled at making everything feel personal, making every reaction feel like it belongs to you. But if you observe closely, you will see that most of your actions are not fresh decisions. They are repeated responses. This is why the same situations create the same emotions again and again. This is why you say things you later regret, even when you told yourself you wouldn't. This is why you fall into the same patterns, even when you are aware of them. Because awareness alone is not enough if it comes after the reaction. By the time you notice, the force has already done its work. And this is where the hidden truth becomes uncomfortable. You are not as in control as you think. Not because you are weak, but because you have been running on patterns that were never fully seen. You have been driven by impulses that were never questioned. You have been reacting to life based on what has already happened instead of what is actually happening now. But this is not something to fear. This is something to understand. Because the moment you begin to notice how these reactions start, the moment you catch even a small gap between what happens and how you respond, something shifts. You begin to see the difference between an automatic reaction and a conscious choice. At first, that gap is very small, almost invisible. But with attention, it grows. Instead of reacting immediately, you begin to pause, even if just for a second. And in that second, something powerful happens. The force that was driving you begins to lose its speed. The pattern that was repeating begins to weaken. And for the first time, you are not just being moved. You're seeing the movement. You start to realize that true choice does not come from reacting quickly. It comes from being present enough to see what is happening before you act. It comes from not being pulled instantly by every emotion, every thought, every impulse. It comes from that quiet space where you are aware, but not yet reacting. And the more you stay in that space, the more your actions begin to change. Not because you're forcing them to change, but because you're no longer being completely driven by what you don't see. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to choose instead of follow. And slowly, step by step, you move from being controlled by hidden patterns to living with awareness. That is the difference, and that is where real control begins. Your life is repeating patterns you never questioned. If you pause and look at your life from a distance, not from inside your emotions, but as an observer, you will begin to notice something that is both subtle and powerful. The same kinds of situations keep showing up again and again. The same feelings return, even when the people or places are different. The same endings repeat, even when the story at the beginning looked completely new. At first, it feels like coincidence, like bad luck, like life just happening to you. But if you look deeper, it starts to feel familiar, almost like you have lived this before. You meet different people, yet the emotional experience feels the same. You enter new situations, yet they lead you to the same kind of stress, the same kind of confusion, the same kind of disappointment. You promise yourself that this time it will be different, that you will respond differently, that you will not fall into the same place again. But somehow, without even realizing how, you find yourself back there once more. And each time it happens, it feels more frustrating, more confusing, because you cannot understand why it keeps repeating. The truth is, your life is not just moving forward, it is also looping. There are patterns inside you that are quietly shaping how you see the world, how you react to it, and what you attract into your experience. These patterns were not created in a single moment. They were built slowly, through repeated thoughts, repeated emotions, repeated experiences that left an impression on you. Over time, they became familiar, and what is familiar feels safe, even when it is not good for you. So without realizing it, you begin to recreate what you already know. Not because you want to suffer, but because your mind and body are used to that pattern. It becomes your normal. And once something becomes your normal, you stop questioning it. You start believing that this is just how life is, that this is just how you are, that this is something you cannot change. But what you call yourself is often just a collection of these repeated patterns. The way you think, the way you react, the way you handle situations, all of it is shaped by what has been repeated the most. And because it has been repeated so many times, it feels natural. It feels automatic. It feels like truth. But it is not truth. It is conditioning. These patterns guide your choices without you noticing. They influence what you say yes to and what you avoid. They shape how you interpret people's actions, how you respond to challenges, how you see yourself. And because they are running in the background, you rarely stop to question them. You simply live through them over and over again, thinking each time that it is something new. This is why awareness is so important. Because the moment you begin to see a pattern clearly, it starts to lose its unconscious power. When you recognize that a certain situation is not new, that it is part of something repeating, you step out of the illusion that it just happened. You begin to see the connection between your past reactions and your present experience. At first, this realization can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like you are stuck, like nothing is changing. But in reality, it is the beginning of change, because you cannot break something you do not see. You cannot step out of a pattern you have never questioned. But once you see it, once you recognize it, something inside you becomes more aware. And that awareness creates space, a space where you are no longer completely inside the pattern, but slightly outside of it, observing it. In that space, you have a chance to respond differently. Not perfectly, not instantly, but differently enough to begin shifting the cycle. The more you notice these patterns, the less automatic they become. The more you question them, the weaker they grow. And slowly, what once felt like an unchangeable part of your life begins to loosen its grip. You start to realize that you are not trapped in these repetitions. You are simply unaware of them. Your life has been repeating patterns you never questioned. But the moment you start to see them, the repetition begins to break. Your past is quietly controlling your every reaction. You believe your past is something that is over, something that happened and is now gone. You think you have moved on, that time has created distance, that what happened before no longer has power over you. But if you look closely at how you react in the present moment, you will begin to notice something deeper. The past is not behind you. It is inside you. It is still active, still influencing, still shaping the way you see and respond to life without you even realizing it. Every experience you have ever had has left a mark. Some are light and easy, but others are heavy, emotional, and deeply stored within you. Moments of fear, rejection, embarrassment, loss, or pain do not simply disappear. They settle into your mind and body, becoming part of how you interpret the world. And when something in the present moment feels even slightly similar to those past experiences, your system reacts instantly, as if it is happening all over again. This is why sometimes your reaction feels bigger than the situation. A small comment can hurt more than it should. A simple misunderstanding can create strong emotions. A normal situation can trigger anxiety or doubt that feels out of proportion. And you may not understand why, because on the surface, nothing serious has happened. But beneath the surface, something has been touched. Something old has been activated. Your mind does not always separate the past from the present. It works through association. If something reminds it of a past experience, it brings up the same emotional response, even if the current situation is different. It is trying to protect you based on what it has learned before. But in doing so, it traps you in a loop where you are constantly reacting to what has already happened instead of what is actually happening now. You are not just seeing the present moment clearly. You are seeing it through the filter of your past. Every reaction you have is influenced by memories, beliefs, and emotional patterns that were formed long ago. And because this process happens automatically, you believe your reaction is fully justified, fully accurate, fully yours. But in reality, it is a mixture of now and then, of present and past, blended together in a way that feels real but is not completely true. This is how the past quietly controls you. Not loudly, not obviously, but subtly, through your reactions, through your feelings, through the way you interpret everything around you. It does not need to remind you of itself directly. It simply shows up as your response, and you accept it without question. You may find yourself reacting the same way in different situations, even when you try not to. You may notice that certain types of people trigger the same emotions in you, even if they are not doing anything wrong. You may feel stuck in cycles that seem to repeat without clear reason. This is not because you are weak or unable to change. It is because the past is still active within you, guiding your reactions from behind the scenes. But the moment you begin to see this, everything starts to shift. When you realize that your reaction is not just about what is happening now, but also about what has happened before, you create a small gap. In that gap, you are no longer completely controlled. You begin to question your response. You begin to ask yourself, is this really about this moment, or is something deeper being triggered? That question alone brings awareness. And awareness changes everything. Instead of reacting immediately, you start to pause. You notice the emotion as it rises. You feel it, but you do not instantly act on it. You begin to separate what is happening now from what you are carrying from the past. And in doing so, you slowly free yourself from automatic reactions. This does not mean the past disappears. It does not mean you will never feel those emotions again. But it means they no longer control you in the same way. They become something you can see, something you can understand, instead of something that silently drives you. The past loses its power the moment it becomes visible, because what is seen can be understood, and what is understood no longer controls you in the same way. You are not meant to keep reliving what has already happened. You are meant to see it clearly and finally move beyond it. Your attention is being stolen every single day. Your attention is one of the most powerful things you have, yet it is also the most unnoticed. You rarely think about where it goes, how it moves, or who is controlling it. You simply follow it. From the moment you wake up, your attention begins to scatter. One thought leads to another. One distraction pulls you into the next, and before you realize it, your mind is already busy, already occupied, already far away from the present moment. You may be sitting in one place, but your attention is somewhere else. Thinking about the past, worrying about the future, replaying conversations, imagining scenarios that have not even happened. It feels normal because it happens every day. But this constant movement is not harmless. It is quietly taking something from you. Your presence, your clarity, your control. Your attention does not stay still for long. It is pulled by anything that feels important, urgent, or emotionally charged. A single thought can take you away for minutes, sometimes hours, without you even noticing. You begin thinking about something small, and suddenly, it grows into a chain of thoughts that keeps expanding. By the time you become aware again, you have already been carried far away from reality. And this is how your attention is being stolen. Not in an obvious way, not by force, but by constant pulling. Every thought that demands your focus, every emotion that takes over your mind, every distraction that keeps you busy, all of it is taking your attention away from where it truly belongs. And the more this happens, the less control you feel over your own mind. Because whatever controls your attention, controls your life. If your attention is always on worry, your life begins to feel heavy. If your attention is always on fear, your world feels unsafe. If your attention is always on comparison, you begin to feel like you are not enough. Your experience of life is shaped by what you give your attention to, not just by what is happening around you. But the problem is, you are not always choosing where your attention goes. It is being pulled automatically by thoughts, habits, and external influences. You pick up your phone for a second, and suddenly, you are lost in it. You start thinking about something small, and suddenly it takes over your entire mood. You try to focus, but your mind keeps drifting somewhere else. It feels like you are in control, but in reality, your attention is constantly being taken from you. This is why you feel mentally tired, even when you have done nothing physically exhausting. Because your attention has been moving all day, jumping from one thing to another, never resting, never settling. It is like your mind is always running, even when your body is still. But the moment you become aware of this, something begins to change. You start noticing when your attention drifts. You catch yourself in the middle of a thought instead of being completely lost in it. You realize how easily your focus is pulled away, and for the first time, you begin to bring it back. Not by force, not by frustration, but gently. You return to the present moment. You return to what is actually in front of you. You become aware of where you are, what you are doing, how you're feeling. And in that moment, your attention is no longer being stolen. It is back with you. At first, it will not stay for long. It will drift again and again and again. But each time you notice, each time you bring it back, you are strengthening something inside you. You are taking small steps toward real control. Because real control is not about controlling everything around you. It is about being aware of where your attention is. It is about not letting every thought take you away. It is about choosing again and again to come back. Your attention is your life. Where you place it, determines everything. And the moment you stop giving it away so easily, you begin to take your life back. The illusion of control is keeping you asleep. There is a belief you carry every day without even noticing it. A quiet assumption that shapes the way you see yourself and your life. You believe you are in control. You believe your thoughts are yours, your actions are yours, your direction is yours. And this belief feels comforting. It gives you a sense of stability, a feeling that you are the one deciding, the one leading, the one in charge of your own path. But this comfort comes with a hidden cost. Because when you believe you are already in control, you stop looking deeper. You stop questioning what is really happening beneath the surface. This is where the illusion begins. Control, as you imagine it, feels like certainty. It feels like knowing what you are doing and why you are doing it. But if you observe your life closely, you will notice how much of it unfolds automatically. Thoughts appear without your invitation. Emotions rise without your permission. Reactions happen before you have time to think. And yet, after all of this, your mind steps in and tells you a story that makes it feel like you were in control the whole time. It explains your behavior, justifies your actions, and creates a sense of ownership over something that was already in motion. You are not seeing the process clearly. You are seeing the result and calling it control. This illusion is powerful because it protects itself. It keeps you from questioning, keeps you from observing, keeps you from stepping back. Because the moment you truly begin to look, the moment you become deeply aware, you start to see how much is happening on its own. And that realization can feel uncomfortable at first. It can feel like the ground beneath you is shifting, like the identity you trusted is not as solid as you believed. But this discomfort is not a problem. It is a doorway. Because real awareness does not come from believing you are in control. It comes from seeing clearly where control is missing. It comes from noticing how often you are being carried by habits, by impulses, by patterns that you never consciously chose. It comes from recognizing that much of what you do is not the result of clear intention, but the continuation of something that has been running for a long time. The illusion of control keeps you asleep because it removes the need to wake up. If you think you are already aware, you will not look for awareness. If you think you are already choosing, you will not question your choices. And so the patterns continue. The reactions repeat, and the hidden force remains unseen. But the moment you begin to doubt this illusion, something shifts. You start to notice the gaps. You see how quickly a thought turns into a reaction. You catch the moment when an emotion takes over before you can understand it. You observe how your mind moves without asking you, and instead of assuming control, you begin to observe the lack of it. This is where true awareness begins. Not in control, but in seeing. Because real control is not about forcing your thoughts to stop or your emotions to disappear. It is not about trying to dominate your mind or control every outcome. Real control is much quieter, much deeper. It comes from being present enough to see what is happening without being completely taken by it. It comes from that small space where you are aware before you react, where you notice before you follow. And that space cannot exist as long as you are trapped in the illusion. You have to see clearly that what you believed to be control was often just habit, just repetition, just unconscious movement. You have to recognize that awareness was missing, That observation was missing. That presence was missing. And once you see that, once you truly understand it, something begins to open inside you. You become more attentive, more present, more aware of the subtle movements of your mind. You begin to question instead of assume. You begin to observe instead of react. And slowly, without force, without struggle, real control starts to grow. Not the illusion of control that comes from belief, but the quiet, steady control that comes from awareness. The illusion kept you asleep because it made you feel safe without being aware. But now, you are starting to see. And once you truly see, you cannot go back to sleep the same way again. The moment you become aware, the control begins to break. There is a turning point in this entire journey, a moment so quiet that you might almost miss it, yet so powerful that it begins to change everything. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it does not feel like a sudden transformation. It is simply the moment you become aware. The moment you stop being completely lost in your thoughts and begin to notice them. The moment you stop reacting automatically and start seeing what is happening inside you as it is happening. Up until this point, most of your life has been running on autopilot. Thoughts appear and you follow them. Emotions rise and you become them. Reactions happen and you believe they are yours. There is no gap, no distance, no space between what happens inside you and how you respond. It all feels like one continuous flow, and you are fully inside it without even realizing it. But awareness changes that. The moment you become aware, even for a second, something shifts. You are no longer completely inside the thought. You are looking at it. You are no longer completely consumed by the emotion. You are noticing it, and in that small shift, a gap appears. It may be very small at first, almost invisible, but it is enough. Because within that gap, you are no longer fully controlled. This is where the hidden force begins to lose its power. It does not disappear instantly. The thoughts will still come. The emotions will still rise. The patterns will still try to repeat. But something is different now. You are not completely asleep to them. You are not blindly following them. You are seeing them. And that alone begins to weaken their hold over you. At first, this awareness will come and go. You will notice a thought, and then a few moments later, you will be lost in another one. You will catch yourself reacting, and then suddenly realize what just happened. It may feel like you are going back and forth between awareness and unconsciousness, and that is completely natural. This is how the process begins, because awareness is not something you force. It is something you return to. Each time you notice, each time you become aware again, you are breaking the pattern a little more. You are interrupting the automatic flow that has been running for so long. You are no longer giving it full control. Even if it is just for a moment, that moment matters. And slowly, those moments begin to grow. You start to notice thoughts earlier, before they fully take over. You begin to feel emotions as they rise, instead of only after they have already shaped your actions. You become more present, more grounded, more connected to what is actually happening right now. And in this growing awareness, something powerful begins to happen. You realize that you have a choice, not the kind of choice that comes from thinking harder or trying to control everything, but a deeper kind of choice that comes from seeing clearly. You can choose not to follow every thought. You can choose not to react immediately to every emotion. You can choose to pause, even if just for a second, and let the moment settle before you respond. That pause is where freedom begins. Before awareness, there is no pause. There is only reaction. But once awareness is present, even slightly, the pause appears. And in that pause, you are no longer being driven in the same way. The hidden force is still there, but it no longer has complete control over you. You begin to experience yourself differently. You are not just the thoughts moving through your mind. You are the one watching them. You are not just the emotions rising within you. You are the one feeling them, without being completely lost in them. You are no longer fully identified with every reaction. There is space now. There is clarity. And that clarity changes everything. Because control does not come from forcing your mind to be silent or trying to eliminate every negative thought. Real control comes from awareness, from being present enough to see what is happening before you are taken by it, from recognizing the pattern without becoming the pattern. The moment you become aware, even in the smallest way, the control begins to break. Not all at once, not completely, but enough to start changing your experience of life. And the more you return to that awareness, the more that control continues to weaken. Until one day, what once controlled you completely no longer has the same power over you. You are not the thoughts that are controlling you. There is a belief you have carried for so long that it feels like truth. A belief so deeply rooted that you rarely question it. You believe that your thoughts are who you are. Every idea, every fear, every opinion, every story your mind creates, you take it personally. You feel like it defines you. And because of that, whatever your mind says begins to shape how you feel, how you act, and how you see your entire life. But if you slow down and observe carefully, something very important begins to reveal itself. Thoughts are always changing. One moment you feel confident, the next moment doubt appears. One moment you feel calm, the next moment your mind creates worry. One day you believe something strongly, the next day your perspective shifts completely. If your thoughts were truly you, then you would have to change every second, because your thoughts never stay the same. They come and go constantly, rising and disappearing like waves. So the question becomes, if your thoughts are always moving, always changing, then what is it that is noticing them? There is something in you that remains steady while thoughts move. Something that sees them come and go. Something that is aware of the voice in your head without becoming that voice. That is the part of you that is real. Not the thoughts themselves, but the awareness behind them. The problem is, you have been identifying with the thoughts instead of observing them. When a negative thought appears, you don't see it as just a thought. You believe it. You feel like it is speaking the truth about you. If the mind says you are not enough, you don't question it, you accept it. If it says something will go wrong, you start to feel fear as if it is already happening. You become whatever the thought is telling you in that moment. This is how thoughts gain control over you. Not because they are powerful on their own, but because you give them power by believing them without question. You attach yourself to them, you follow them, you let them shape your emotions and your actions. And over time, this creates a deep sense of identity. You begin to think, this is just who I am. without realizing that you're simply repeating what your mind has been saying. But the truth is much simpler and much more freeing. You are not the thought. You are the one who can see the thought. That difference may seem small, but it changes everything. Because the moment you recognize that a thought is just something appearing in your mind, not something that defines you, you begin to create distance. That thought may still come, it may still repeat, but it no longer has the same control over you. You can see it without becoming it. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," you begin to notice there is anxiety being felt. Instead of believing, "I am not good enough," you begin to see this is a thought that has appeared. And in that shift, something powerful happens. The thought loses its grip. You are no longer trapped inside it. This does not mean your mind will suddenly become silent. Thoughts will continue to appear just as they always have. But your relationship with them changes. You no longer follow every thought. You no longer believe every story. You begin to watch them, to observe them, to let them pass without holding on. And as you do this, something deeper begins to emerge. A sense of calm, a sense of space, a sense of clarity that was always there, hidden beneath the noise of constant thinking. You begin to realize that your mind can create many things, but it does not have to control you. Thoughts can come and go, but you remain stable, aware, present. The more you stay in that awareness, the less power your thoughts have over you. The more you observe, the less you react. And slowly, the control that once felt so strong begins to fade. You stop being pulled in every direction by your mind. You stop being defined by every passing thought. And you begin to experience something deeper than thinking. Something real, something steady. Because you are not the thoughts that are controlling you. You are the one who can see them and choose not to follow. In stillness, the hidden force finally reveals itself. Most of your life is lived in movement, not just physical movement, but mental movement. Your mind is always active, always thinking, always jumping from one idea to another, from one memory to the next, from one worry to another possibility. There is always something happening inside. Even when you are sitting still, your mind is not still. It is busy, restless, constantly creating noise. And because of this constant noise, you never truly see what is happening underneath. The hidden force that has been shaping your life does not need to hide itself actively. It remains unseen because your attention is always occupied. Your mind is so full, so active, so distracted that there is no space left to observe what is really going on. You are always inside the thoughts, inside the reactions, inside the movement, never stepping back enough to notice the patterns clearly. But the moment you slow down, the moment you allow yourself to be still, something begins to change. Stillness does not mean forcing your mind to stop. It does not mean trying to silence every thought or control every feeling. It simply means allowing everything to be as it is, without chasing it, without reacting to it, without getting pulled into it. It is a state where you are present, aware, and not moving with every thought that appears. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. When the external noise reduces, the internal noise becomes more noticeable. Thoughts may feel louder, emotions may feel stronger. You may suddenly become aware of how restless your mind actually is, and this can make you want to escape, to distract yourself again, to go back to the constant movement that feels more familiar. But if you stay, if you remain in that stillness, even for a little while, something powerful begins to reveal itself. You start to see how thoughts arise on their own. You notice that you are not creating them consciously. They appear one after another without your effort. Some are random, some are repetitive, some carry emotion, some fade quickly. And for the first time, you are not inside them. You are watching them. You begin to notice patterns. You see how certain thoughts repeat again and again. You recognize familiar emotional reactions. You observe how one thought leads to another, forming a chain that can pull you away if you follow it. But now, instead of being lost in that chain, you are aware of it as it forms. And in this awareness, the hidden force becomes visible. It is no longer something mysterious or invisible. You can see how it works. You can see how it moves your attention, how it triggers emotions, how it creates reactions. You can see how it has been operating all along, quietly shaping your experience without you realizing it. This is why stillness is so powerful, not because it removes the force, but because it reveals it. In movement, everything feels natural, automatic, unquestioned. But in stillness, everything becomes clear. You begin to separate yourself from the constant flow of thoughts. You begin to understand that you are not the movement, you are the one observing it. And this understanding changes your relationship with your mind. You no longer feel the need to follow every thought. You no longer feel completely controlled by every emotion. You start to see that everything is happening, but not everything needs your participation. This creates a deeper sense of calm, not because your mind has become completely silent, but because you are no longer caught in every movement it creates. You can sit with your thoughts without being pulled by them. You can feel emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You can observe without reacting immediately. And in that state, something else begins to grow. Clarity. You start to see things as they are, not as your mind tells you they are. You begin to understand yourself on a deeper level. You recognize patterns, not as something you are trapped in, but as something you can see and gradually move beyond. Stillness becomes a mirror. It reflects everything that was hidden beneath the noise. And once you have seen it clearly, once you have recognized how the hidden force operates, it becomes much harder for it to control you in the same way again. Because what is seen cannot remain unseen, and what is understood begins to lose its power. In stillness, you are not escaping your mind. You are finally seeing it. And that is where real awareness deepens. That is where real change begins. The day you see it clearly, you take your life back. There comes a moment in this journey that does not arrive with noise or celebration, but with quiet clarity. It is not something dramatic on the outside, but something deeply real on the inside. A moment where you begin to see everything as it is, without the distortion of old patterns, without the automatic pull of unconscious reactions. A moment where the hidden force that once controlled you no longer feels invisible. You can see it, you can recognize it, and because you can see it, it no longer has the same power over you. This moment does not mean your life suddenly becomes perfect. Your thoughts will still come. Your emotions will still rise. Situations will still challenge you. But something fundamental has changed. You are no longer completely inside the experience. You are aware of it. There is a distance now, a space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, you begin to experience something you may not have felt before in a long time. A sense of real control. Not control in the way you once imagined, not forcing everything to go your way, not trying to silence your mind or avoid every difficulty. This is a different kind of control, a quieter, deeper control that comes from awareness. You begin to notice your thoughts without being pulled into them. You feel your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You see your patterns without automatically repeating them. And slowly, step by step, you begin to respond differently. Where you once reacted instantly, now there is a pause. Where you once followed every thought, now there is observation. Where you once felt trapped in cycles, now there is understanding. And this understanding changes your actions, not through force, but through clarity. You start to realize that your life was never truly taken from you. It was simply being lived through layers you had never fully seen. Layers of habit, of conditioning, of unconscious reactions that kept repeating because they were not understood. And now, as those layers begin to fall away, what remains is something more real, more grounded, more present. You begin to feel a sense of freedom, not because everything around you has changed, but because your relationship with it has changed. You are no longer controlled in the same way. You are no longer pulled in every direction by every thought or emotion. You are here, present, aware, connected to what is actually happening, not lost in what your mind is creating. This is what it means to take your life back. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to what was always there beneath the noise. It is about seeing clearly enough that you no longer confuse yourself with your thoughts, your patterns, your past. It is about living with awareness instead of unconscious repetition. And as this awareness deepens, your life begins to change in ways that feel natural, not forced. Your decisions become clearer. Your actions become more intentional. Your presence becomes stronger. You begin to move through life with a sense of understanding that was not there before. You are no longer reacting blindly. You are no longer repeating without seeing. You are no longer living on autopilot. You are living consciously. And this does not happen all at once. It grows slowly, through awareness, through observation, through returning again and again to that space within you that is calm, clear, and present. There will still be moments where you get pulled back into old patterns, where you lose awareness for a while. But now you can see it. And because you can see it, you can return again and again, until awareness becomes your natural state, until presence becomes your foundation, until your life is no longer something that happens to you, but something you are fully part of. The day you see it clearly is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a different way of living, a way where you are no longer controlled by what you do not see, a way where you are awake, aware, and fully here. And in that state, you do not just exist, you truly live. And now, pause for a moment. Not to think, not to analyze, just to notice. Notice the next thought that appears in your mind. Watch it without following it. Let it come and let it go. Because right there, in that small space where you are simply aware, not reacting, not being pulled, that is where everything begins to change. You spent so much of your life believing you were the thoughts, the reactions, the patterns, the past. You believed that was you. But now you've seen something deeper. You've seen that there is a part of you that can watch it all without being controlled by it. And once you see that, you can never fully go back to being unconscious the same way again. The thoughts may still come. The patterns may still try to repeat. The past may still try to speak. But now, there is awareness. Now there is a pause. Now there is a choice. And that changes everything. So from this moment forward, don't try to control everything. Don't try to fight your mind. Just keep noticing. Keep observing. Keep coming back to that quiet awareness inside you. Because the more you see, the less it controls you. And the less it controls you, the more your real life begins. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now.